Juck is the newest mythic brawler coming to the game, and he will be available sometime in the middle of next season. He's the conductor of the Ghost Train, which makes him the second member of the Ghost Station trio along with Gus. Juck used to be the conductor of an orchestra, and based on his description, he actually chose to give that up in order to become the Ghost Train conductor and find the next big thing in music. So I guess he'll always be a music conductor at heart, especially since his title is the Maestro.
Prossima fermata, ospedale! Please go conduct yourself. Winning fanfare!
I'll show you all of his voice lines at the end of this video. Juck's main attack is Steam Engine. He releases some black steam from the top of his hat that shoots out in 3 different clouds. Each cloud can only deal damage to each target once, but the clouds can go through any number of targets like Emz's main attack. The closer Juck is to the target that he's attacking, the more damage his attacks will deal, very similar to Buster's main attack. So if he's moving away from a target, each cloud will get weaker, and opposite if he's actually moving toward a target. Juck's super is Choo Choo, and there is a lot to unpack here. Not only does Juck start out with his super already charged just like Sam, it's always charging back up no matter what, and honestly, it's really fast. He's going to use his super very frequently. Keep in mind that he can attack enemies and recharge it even faster though. The first super will always be a post that you can throw onto the battlefield, and there's only a couple of ways that Juck can actually remove it once it's placed. When his super charges again, he can either use it to dash toward the nearest post on the ground or use it to place another post down. Whether or not Juck is inside the range of the post actually determines how he will use his super. If he's within range, he will dash to the post no matter what, whether you manually aim or not. But if he's not within range, he will place down another post. Normally, only 3 posts can be on the ground at once. So once he places down the 4th post, the first post that he placed will disappear. And if a post is inside the radius of another post, Juck will instantly dash to that post after reaching the first one, very similar to how Fang's super works. Now there are 2 situations where a post would not connect. Either they are too far away from each other, or if there is a wall between them, because he typically can't dash between the walls. Keep in mind when he throws a post down, it will deal a little bit of damage to anything that hits it, and it will knock them back as well. When he's dashing to a post, he can go through any number of targets, but he won't interrupt their movement at all. Believe me, this super is going to be very fun. Juck's first gadget is rerouting. This gadget is the only other way for him to remove a post from the ground. It instantly removes the nearest post, not the earliest, and his super will instantly be recharged. Just keep in mind that you don't have to use this super to put down another post, so it might come in handy if you quickly need to dash and don't have a super charged. Juck's second gadget is Ghost Train. Normally, Juck cannot travel through walls with his super, but this gadget changes that for 1 super. It only affects the next dash he uses, and all posts will behave as if there are no walls on the map. Just be careful how you use this gadget because it's a one-way trip most of the time. Juck's first star power is Pit Stop. Another thing I mentioned before is that normally he can only place down 3 posts at a time. This star power increases that number from 3 posts up to 4 posts, and as you'll see later in this video, it can add a lot of distance to his dash. Juck's second star power is Tickets Please. While this star power is equipped, every brawler that he hits while dashing will lose 33% of their ammo bar, or in other words, 1 ammo, with the exception of Amber, who actually has 20 ammo or something like that. Additionally, he will instantly recharge the same amount of ammo that is depleted from those brawlers, so it's pretty similar to Pam's Scrap Sucker gadget. Keep in mind that Juck is not being released with a hypercharge. Juck is going to be a lot of fun to play, but let's see how he does in all the Brawl Stars Olympics events. We'll compare him to every brawler in the game, starting with his worst and moving our way up to his best. First up is the reload test. Juck does not have a very fast unload speed, and his reload speed is so slow. It takes him 27.5 seconds to reload 10 shots. That puts him in dead last, 72nd place out of 72 brawlers for reload speed. This is very likely because he's all about his super and not his attack. Up next, we have the area test, and Juck's attack clears 2 rows of 7 skulls each. He can't throw his post over the skulls, but it would have broken 9 of them, so he gets an extra 4 with his dash. I mean, if he could have thrown his skulls, that would have been really fantastic, but it doesn't work that way. Juck gets no help from his gadget and ends up with 27 total skulls. That puts him in 64th place. Next is the attack range test, and Juck's attacks stretch across 7 tiles exactly. That puts him in 54th place, and that puts him right above Nita and right below Poco and Ems for range, so he does not have very much of it. Next is the survival test, and Juck doesn't have any shields or abilities that help recover health. 9,000 health though, that's a lot in the game. It's actually the same amount as Fang is after of the recent balance changes. He's able to survive for 23.6 seconds and gets 39th place. We've only covered 4 tests, but the rest of them are ones where Chuck is better than over half of the brawlers in the game. Next is the 1 second DPS test. Chuck interrupts his first ammo with his super, and then he's able to unload another full ammo all within the same second, which is pretty crazy actually. He deals 7,876 in that 1 second and gets 35th place. For the supercharge test, Chuck is able to charge his super in only 5 seconds if he just stands there and does absolutely nothing, which is way faster than Edgar or Daryl. But with the help of his main attack, he's able to charge his super in 1.7 seconds, and that ties him with Hank and Otis for 26th place. With that being said, I think it's pretty clear to say that Chuck is going to have his super charge up more than any other brawler in the game, with maybe the exception of Sam. Next is the super damage test, and Chuck can deal 800 damage by hitting an enemy with his post. But when he dashes through an enemy, it deals 3,500 damage, and that's enough to put him in 25th place. For reference, that's about the same amount of damage that Mandy can do with her super. Next is the 3 attack kill test. Now, the lowest amount of damage that I could record from one of Chuck's projectiles is 631 damage, but the max damage from one projectile is 1,080, so he's able to deal a total of 9,720 damage with 3 ammo. That is enough to take out 61 of the brawlers in the game with only 3 ammo, and he ties with Barley for 24th place. Next is the box test. Chuck's able to hit multiple boxes at the same time, but he can't deal max damage to all of them since he has to be far enough away for his attacks to hit them all. He still deals plenty of damage to them though, and ends up finishing the box test in 40.2 seconds. That puts him in 24th place and suggests he will be pretty good at ramping up damage in Showdown. For the auto aim test, Chuck is able to hit Nita from 5 tiles away, but only with 1 projectile, and since his attack gets weaker the further it travels, it doesn't deal max damage. From 5 tiles away, he deals 946 damage, which puts him in 24th place. Next is the splash test. Chuck deals a little bit of damage to several boxes with his post, and then quickly breaks down the first 2 rows with his main attack. After he gets powered up enough, he uses his super to dash through the rest of the boxes, and then 1 main attack to clean up the rest of them. He completes the splash test in 8.2 seconds and gets 23rd place. Next is the assassin test, and with his 2nd star power equipped, Chuck is able to constantly replenish 1 ammo with his super, which is basically enough to recharge the super and repeat the cycle until 3 seconds have gone by. In those 3 seconds, he deals 17,520 damage. That puts him in 13th place and is way more than enough to take out any brawler in the game. What's probably more impressive though is the boss test. Chuck uses the same tactics as the assassin test, but since he can do this forever, he repeats the cycle until the boss is defeated. It only takes him 17.4 seconds to defeat the boss, and that puts him in 6th place and is a good indicator that throughout the duration of an entire match, Chuck has potential to deal massive amounts of damage. Next is the super range test. Now Chuck can throw his posts 11 1/3 tiles away, and each of those posts have a 6 2/3 tile radius to where Chuck can actually dash to it. But if 4 posts are placed on the ground in a straight line, he can dash 26 tiles away, which is really far, and that puts him in 6th place. Next is the swarm test. Now I let Chuck place 4 posts in just the right spot so that using only 1 super, he's able to take out the entire swarm just by dashing. He defeats the swarm in 1.5 seconds, so he ties with Grom for 3rd place. Finally, we have the race test. Chuck has a fast movement speed, so he's already faster than the average brawler, but we had to let him use his super for this test. With his 1st star power letting him have 4 posts, he dashes well above the training area, and it only takes him 4.5 seconds to finish, and that puts him in 1st place overall. Congratulations, Chuck. You are the newest, fastest brawler in the game, and you beat both Carl and Mortis by over 2 seconds. Chuck is one of the most interesting and unique brawlers we've seen, in a long time. And that's saying a lot, because we had some really cool brawlers be released recently. So the really big question is, how strong is he actually going to be? I've only played him against bots, so take this with a grain of salt, but let me share my thoughts. And then we'll show all of his pins and voice lines. First, let's talk about gem grab, and Chuck's super is a great ability for assassinating an enemy brawler with lots of gems, then running away with those gems. Even just throwing down a post and bumping an enemy gem carrier toward his team could really catch them off guard and turn the game around. The thing is though, Chuck doesn't actually have the best area control, kind of. With his regular attack, he doesn't, but with his super, he can just prevent people from going to entire areas, because if they go across his tracks, there's a very good chance he's going to use his super and deal tons of damage to them. So I am going to put him in the S tier for gem grab. Brawl Ball, he's also going to be S tier. Every enemy is always going to have to keep their eye on Chuck during the whole match, because it's going to be really easy for him to make sneaky plays with his super, especially with his Ghost Train gadget. He's also got really good range for Brawl Ball, tons of health, which which makes it a lot easier for him to walk balls into the goal. And like, honestly, he really could be insane for Brawl Ball. So S tier makes sense for him. For knockout though, I'm going with A tier. He might struggle a little bit more because he does not have the best range, but I actually still think that he'll be pretty good for this mode since his super charges automatically and he'll make up for that short range by dashing wherever he needs to go once enough time has passed. I could see him closing down the middle center area, and then once the smoke closes in, nobody's gonna be able to deal with him. So I think A tier makes sense for knockout. For wipeout, we're gonna go with A tier as well, and this is another game mode where I feel like you need a little bit more range in order for you to be an S tier brawler, but his super is still a great ability for assassinating brawlers that don't see him coming. But the thing is, moving in a straight line makes you a really easy target, so he might even get defeated before he's finished dashing. Chuck honestly seems like a really strong brawler overall, so I think that at least A tier overall makes sense for wipeout. As for Siege, I know I've only played him against bots so far, but let me tell you what, after I set up the post that ran all the way across the middle of the map, it just seemed ridiculously easy for him to pick up a bolt, move to the other side of the map, pick up another bolt, dash all the way back, picking up any bolts in between, dealing damage along the way. Like, his super is insane for Siege. His main attack is really good for dealing damage to the Siege bot and to the turret, but I think his biggest strength is just the fact that he's going to be able to pick up those bolts pretty much all the time. S tier absolutely for Siege. As for Solo Showdown, that might be his worst game mode because his posts can't be hidden, and I feel like it will be really easy to just stay far away from his posts on such a large map. But even if his super isn't the best offensive tool for this mode, it could be really useful for getting him out of a tight pinch, so I'm going to go with the B tier here. For Duo Showdown, B tier as well. I think he might be slightly better in Duo Showdown. That's because his attack can actually hit multiple targets, so like if people are bunched up, he could really wreck them. But one thing that's worse for Chuck in Duo Showdown is the fact that he's a very easy target whenever he's dashing. So typically he only gets hit by one full clip while he's dashing by a teammate or by an enemy, but if they also have a teammate who's firing at him, it's likely he'll get killed. So I think the positives and the cons for Duo Showdown kind of like cancel each other out and put him in the B tier. Honestly, Chuck is gonna take a lot to get used to. He's gonna be a high skill cap brawler. I don't even know where the best place to put his posts are yet, but I do think he's going to be very strong in my opinion, and more importantly, a lot of fun to play. We're gonna show you all of his voice lines, but I am going to be doing a video in the future where I unlock him and max him out as soon as possible and give you guys my thoughts on him after actually playing against real players. So make sure you subscribe for that and let me know what your thoughts are below.
A symphony of suffering. Molto triste. Molto triste. Concerto of carnage. Arrivederci. Arrivederci. I lost my train of thought. Deve staccato. Pianissimo, please. Attenzione. What a thrill. Brawlissimo. Winning fanfare. You need more training. Please go conduct yourself. È stato bello. My magnum opus. Il mio momento. From minor to major. Time for the applause! Grazie a tutti! That was well orchestrated! È stato ben orchestrato! Eccomi, il maestro! Back on track! Next stop, Crepeville! Into the fray! Full steam ahead! Time to let off some steam! Choo-choo! All aboard! The pain train! Choo-choo! Destination Pain! Prossima fermata, ospedale! Treno!